today making my intentions known to enter the Democratic primary for governor.
The changes there are not related to First Amendment, First Amendment exercise being conducted on front of the building today. Under current marriage law, there's a variety of circumstances, different age cutoffs. If you are under age 18, but over 60, you need the consent of a parent.
I would consider what they took out. And I would consider that absolutely.
Or make wild and insane claims about pederasty and all this other business.
You've heard a lot about Ruth Dwyer, Anthony Polina, Bill Mube, and Howard Dean. There is one candidate you've not heard very much about. He announced his candidacy at the end of April. Brian Pearl, status being a natural right, same as freedom of speech, has a boundary. Freedom of speech as a natural right has a boundary. You can't go into a crowded movie theater and yell fire where there is no fire. Society puts a boundary on that natural right. Spouse status is natural rights. Boundary is homosexuality and bestiality. If society goes beyond that, you will endanger the 14 to 17-year-old minors that are allowed heterosexual spouse status. If homosexual spouse status is granted to these minors, which was attempted in this legislature, and Governor Howard Dean gave political cover for 7 days. It took me 7 days of fighting with the Judiciary Committee and finally going outside with a sign and picketing with a sign that said Governor Howard Dean provides political cover for the legalizing of sodomy of 14-year-old boys. Then minors were taken out of this bill. Same-sex marriage includes minors as a natural right. We have to set natural boundaries. These are what are called moral boundaries. That's why our Constitution also says that the state shall maintain laws against immorality. That is why it's unconstitutional to take this natural right and extend it out beyond its boundary where it endangers the youth of this state.
I got to tell you, you got me over a barrel. I'm completely confused. What are you talking about with granting rights to 14-year-olds?
Okay.
I don't get it.
I've testified in Judiciary Committee, and I understand, a lot of people don't understand, the state statutes say that a 14 to 17-year-old minor can marry with one parental consent and a probate court order. When Tom Little, on February 9th, presented the first draft of domestic partnership, that was identical to marriage. He simply had legal counsel take Title 15 of the marriage statutes and change the words.
Let me interrupt just for a second. I'll make sure I'm clear on this.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that the first draft of that bill would have permitted 14-year-olds who now, I guess, are married, to get married in a homosexual relationship.
Yeah, but it would have been formed a civil union at that time. Civil union,
just like heterosexual, presumably 14-year-olds can marry now in a probate court. So that's what that was your opposition.
Yeah,
that would have occurred.
That would have occurred, and the governor was not even uncomfortable with that. That bill went to his desk. Now his press secretary says that he had no opinion on it. My question is, did he read the first draft? My real question is now, did he read the final draft of the bill? We don't know. I read the draft. I read the state statutes before legislature ever started. I sat in Judiciary Committee every day and listened to all.
But what he's referring to is an early draft of the Civil Unions Bill, in which it heralds the marriage statute, which allows minors to get married if they have parental permission. He and others pointed out that they didn't think that was appropriate, far from appropriate for minor boys or girls to be able to get a same-sex union with an adult. And in fact, the committee did write that out.
During the debate over the civil unions legislation, Governor Dean referred to Brian Pearl as, quote, an extremist.
They legalized sodomitic abuse of 14 to 17-year-old boys. That's same-sex marriage. That's why I'm being censored. You have to say whatever you want.
I might just say that I don't support the same-sex marriage either.
Okay, really super. Jim, it's been a pleasure having you on here. Brian, it's been a pleasure having you. And look at this.
See that I'm probably not going to win this race in 2 days because I've been censored by the state media. And all those thousands of you that voted for me 2 years ago and said that you have to vote, that you want to vote for me this time, I will understand if you don't vote for me. I can make one thing clear tonight. Only one man has been a statesman enough to face me in a debate and answer the questions about whether he'd veto same-sex marriage or not, and that is Jim Douglas. Jim Douglas has faced me in a debate. This man right here, Racine, will not answer the question whether he will veto same-sex marriage. Eventually, the general public will understand that same-sex marriage is unconsummatable and that it would include teenage boys.
Brian Pearl, who was very outspoken and ran for governor even on this issue.
If they're the anti-gay marriage community, probably if they're going to oppose this, needs to find some good spokespeople to turn out. They've chosen to ignore these hearings, and that's their decision. But when you get a Brian Pearl or another sort of extremist out there as the only voice against, I'm not sure that they're helping their cause particularly.
Parental consent and probate court order in 1617 with parental consent. That is a tangible difference between civil unions. That wasn't given in your explanation. It wasn't explained that that was an original civil union and had to be pulled out after 7 days, and I'll specify this. Channel 3 actually, for the first time in 6 years, put that on. The morning news. It was off by noon because Marcellus Parsley came in and pulled it off by noon because the reporter didn't know who I was and that I'm supposed to be censored. But it seems to be everybody didn't hear it because the lieutenant governor didn't know that 14 to 17-year-old minors could marry. Mind you, we didn't know that until about 3 weeks ago. When I explained that to him, the first thing he says is, does John Campbell know that his bill is going to include 14 to 17-year-old teenagers? I said, of course he knows that. He says, well, I'll have to talk to John Campbell about that. This fight isn't over. It isn't close to being over. It's obvious. It's coming down to me. And that's what it's going to come down to. Whether the unified state media can censor me.
Baby did a bad, bad thing. Baby did a bad, bad thing. Baby did a bad, bad thing. Baby did a bad, bad thing.
Would give same-sex couples many of the legal rights that civil unions do not.
Marriage is a relationship between a man and a woman. I'll be right outside Judiciary Committee, and if you need to ask any more questions on how a marriage is consummated, you can come out there and ask me, and I'll explain it to you. And if you have any, and if you decide,
I don't think we'll do that.
Okay, you don't have to. Okay, because it's apparent that you don't know that a marriage is consummated by an act of sexual intercourse which results in the possibility of procreation.
You can ask my 3 children and my wife. I'm sure that might be.
Yeah, but you've just presented a bill. You've just presented a bill that is simulating that with an act of anal penetration to consummate the marriage. That doesn't consummate the marriage. So, any questions? Questions for Mr. Pearl? Thank you very much. Just of the actual division of our nation with pro-sodomy states and anti-sodomy states is historic.
Thank you. Comments. Other questions for Mr. Pearl?
Any other questions?
Other questions? Thank you very much.
His office has been bombarded with thousands of phone calls, mostly from in-state, he said, pushing him on the marriage equality bill. As you know, it passed the Senate by a 26-4 vote and is now pending in the House.
Baby did a bad, bad thing. 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 Baby did a bad, bad thing.